Someone tried to scam me last week, and I have been doing this real estate thing for a minute. So tenant scams are everywhere for all types of landlords and all type of real estate investors in general, but especially for Section 8 landlords like myself. And if you are not hip to the game or aware of these, you can truly get taken advantage of. Because a lot of people think that landlords and Section 8 landlords specifically are just desperate for tenants. They don't think we know what we're doing, or they think that the fact that we know we're gonna get guaranteed rent from the government and that voucher is just gonna make us sloppy as landlords. So today I am shutting all of that down, and I'm walking you through the top tenant scams that landlords face, and specifically what you need to watch out for if you are working with Section 8 voucher holders and Section 8 tenants. And if you know that Section 8 investing and setting into Section 8 rentals is something that you're interested in, I have built an automated Section 8 landlord guide that goes through step-by-step all of the systems that my husband and I use in our $1 million Section 8 rental portfolio. And you can get that with a link in the description below. So here's the thing no one really tells new landlords and even OG landlords like myself. The scams don't look like scams, especially in this day and age. They look like normal tenant behavior. They look reasonable until they're not. And the crazy part is before you even realize what is happening, you've already handed over the keys and these people are living in your house. So let's break it down and talk about what you actually need to look for. Scam number one is going to be fake employment records. On paper, the tenant looks perfect, steady income, because especially like you may be wondering, okay, if you're a Section 8 landlord, what does their income records even matter? Well, contrary to popular belief, many Section 8 tenants do in fact work, and some of them are going to be covering a portion of that rent. Most of the time, the government is paying 80% or more, so you can get a tenant where the government is paying 100%, but that's not always the case. So you do want to still get employment verification. That looks like clean pay stubs, employment verification letters. But the wild thing is those documents, a lot of times they can be actually fakes. Because y'all, there are services openly advertising on social media that I will create fake W-2 documents for you, fake bank statements in minutes. And now with AI, who knows, the world is banana pants. But the good thing is the red flags are usually pretty easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. Things like the income itself being way too high for the job role, the HR contact having a Gmail address, or the numbers just generally not adding up when you look really closely. So here's what you need to do instead of just trusting the paperwork blindly. You need to call the employer directly. And I'm not talking about the number that was listed on the application. I'm talking about the actual business's phone number that you should be able to find online. And if anything feels off, you can always ask for tax returns or additional bank statements if that's something you want to do. But the bottom line is trust but verify, okay? So you want to verify everything and really take nothing at face value, especially if you are feeling the heebie-jeebies about anything that was submitted to you. The second scam is going to be the utilities being left in your name as the landlord. And this one really happens pretty often. The tenant promises that they are going to transfer the utilities into their name before they actually move in. They make all the promises in the world and they move in, and then you realize that, hey, they never transferred the actual utilities. And so now you are legally on the hook for whatever, the gas bill, the electric bill, whatever it is, the water bill, you're on the hook for it because it's still in your name. Boo to that. So my rule is pretty simple. The keys do not leave my hand until I see that the utilities are officially in you, the tenant's name. So not a promise, not a pending transfer, none of that BS. I need to see from the utility company that this joint is in your name and not mine. And I have this all set up in my system so that I am informing tenants multiple times before they move in that this is a requirement in order to rent this particular property. So it's not a surprise. It's not something that they are unaware of. They know that if they want this particular house, this particular apartment, they need to follow this particular rule. And for Section 8 landlords specifically, your public housing authority paperwork is already very detailed and process driven. So just incorporate this into your onboarding process, into your system, so that it's dialed in and there are no questions about it. Use that same process driven energy that the housing authority already makes Section 8 tenants go through for this very valuable voucher, and make it all a part of your system in order to move into your rentals. Scam number 3 is going to be an oldie but a goodie, very old school, the hot check. So we've all seen and heard of this before, but it does still happen in this day and age. And this is where the tenant shows up to actually sign their lease and give you their security deposit as well as their first month rent, but they have a personal check in order to do that. And you take that personal check and go and deposit it, and you later find out it is a bounced check. But you already gave them the keys, they are already living in your property, and now you have to start the eviction process before the lease is even a week old. That sucks balls. Nobody wants that. So the easy, quick way to solve this is that your move-in policy should include the requirement that the checks to move in be cashier's checks only, okay? No exceptions, no special circumstances. It needs to be a cashier's check from a bank of some sort so that you know that when you deposit this check, it is going to clear. And really, if someone has a problem with that, that is usually a red flag to begin with, so keep that in mind. So again, you want to make sure you're telling them in advance. You explain, if you need to, what a cashier's check is, how to get one, and you make sure they confirm that that is a requirement before they move in, before they get keys to the property. The fourth scam that landlords may often see is short cash payments. So this is the one that almost got me a couple weeks ago with a new client of mine that I was helping set up their Section 8 rental. With this tenant, the government is paying about 90% of their rent, but that small 10% they are responsible for. And what happens here is the tenant pays that portion in cash, or maybe Zelle, or however you've set it up. Maybe you've got it automated, and they're short just a little bit, maybe $60. And they say, hey, don't worry about it. I'll bring you that additional $60 next week. Sounds harmless, no problem. Okay, it's just $60. But here's the caveat. In some states, once you accept partial payment, it legally counts as full payment received. Hear me again. Listen with your listening ears. That partial payment that you accepted in certain states is now deemed full payment received. Now you've set a precedent. And if that tenant knows the game, right? If they're hip to the game, they've got you chasing short cash payments every single month, and there's not much that you can do about it. So my solution is, do not accept cash, no matter what. Everything should be electronic so you can digitally track it and know exactly how much you were paid. So everything goes through electronic transfer at a set amount, no more, no less. And if for whatever reason, which you really shouldn't do, you absolutely, for whatever reason, have to collect cash, you need to do it with the tenant present, and you count every single dollar and take pictures to verify what was received and what wasn't. And you should both acknowledge the amount that was received, preferably in writing, so that you have documentation of it and you know that, hey, this is a partial payment, you still owe XYZ amount, if there is an amount owed, and you can go from there. And you're documenting that it is not a full payment received amount. The fifth scam is going to be a big one, which is emotional support animals. And I feel like landlords all over the country, whether they're Section 8, even Airbnb or traditional landlords, have been seeing this one a lot. So this is when your tenant or even your guest, let's say if you're an Airbnb host, agrees to and signs a no pet lease, which is what I have because I don't do pets in my rental properties. because I don't want doggy pee pee and poo poo all over my house. No, thank you. But then you show up a few months later and there's Fido. There's a doggy. There's a kitty cat. How'd that happen? And the tenant replies, oh, that's my emotional support animal. You cannot charge me pet rent. No, this is an emotional support animal. And some of them even have documentation and letters printed off of some official website. And for me, I even had one of my amazing Section 8 tenants. Fortunately, she did not move forward with it, but she did continuously ask me after signing the lease, hey, can I get a dog? Can I get a dog? It's just gonna be a little one. And I had to be very firm and say, this is what we agreed to. This is what we need to move forward with. And thankfully, because I screened very well, they moved forward with that policy and we haven't had an issue since. But here's how you are gonna make sure that this doesn't happen to you. And if it does, you are able to easily rectify this situation ASAP. And that is, during your pre-screening, you're not gonna ask about pets, but you're actually gonna ask about any animals, whether they're pets or not. You're just gonna ask about animals living in the home, and specifically say that includes emotional support animals. Birds, turtles, fish, cockroaches, whatever. And you use the exact language they will try to use on you potentially in the future, which usually is that emotional support animal language. By the way, I'm not saying emotional support animals are not real. Don't come for me. I'm just saying I don't necessarily want animals, period, in my rental properties. Okay. And here's the thing, real emotional support animal owners are going to be upfront about it because they need that support. They don't want to live somewhere that they can't have it, or they're going to have to hide it, or any of that. So the real owners who have that situation are going to let you know so that they can move on to a property that will let them easily have an emotional support animal. Scammers are usually the ones who are going to bring it up after the fact. Sometimes it's just by accident, but you really have to be firm with this to protect your property, which is your asset. Okay, the sixth scam is going to be the I get paid after the first slide. Okay, and this one is slow, so it's dangerous. It's a little sneaky. This is when the tenant cannot pay on the first because they say they get paid on the 10th. Makes sense. Can they pay you then? Makes sense. So you say yes once and it works, but now you have set the new normal. 1 month becomes 2 months, 2 months becomes 4 months, and before you know it, this is how the tenant is paying you late every single month. And eventually you're collecting rent a month behind and wondering how you got here. And this is where you kind of have to be a little hard and stick to rent is due on the date that it's due, not after. And not on the date that is convenient for them. Because the reality is most of us landlords do have mortgages. We do have financial obligations with this asset that we also have to pay on a certain timeline, which I think sometimes tenants may forget, but that is the reality of the situation. This is a business for you and you have to treat it that way. And so the real way to deal with this is to enforce your lease. So when a payment is made late, you need to send out those late notices, send out the information on what can happen if rent is late continuously, and make sure they're aware that you are aware that the lease has technically been violated. And for Section 8 tenants, you already have a payment structure in place between you, the public housing authority, and the tenant. So letting the tenants portion slide or come in late consistently while the housing authority is continuously paying theirs on time, it's going to set up a messy precedent and one that you don't want to get into and is very hard to undo. Now, I will say this caveat, for good tenants that you have a good relationship with, which you really want to have with all of your tenants, you want to talk to them. You want to put a plan in place. You don't, of course, just want to kick good tenants to the curb because life does happen. But communication is required and ghosting is not acceptable. Now, I know for a lot of you, you may be thinking, oh, but I don't want to be that hard-ass landlord, the man. I want to have a good relationship with my tenants. And I totally hear that because that's something I want as well. I don't think a landlord-tenant relationship should be or needs to be adversarial at all. But here's the truth, enforcing your lease is not being mean. It's being professional It's being consistent, and consistent landlords attract consistent tenants. The landlords who often get scammed aren't the strict ones. They're often the ones who trusted without verifying and have a very loosey-goosey system to their rental business. So the key here is to screen thoroughly, verify everything, and enforce your lease. That's truly the whole system. And if you want to see exactly how I built a $1 million Section 8 rental portfolio, get amazing Section 8 tenants that have been with us for years now, how I set up my properties to stay compliant with HUD, and how we're continuing to increase our guaranteed rent and cash flow every year, download my automated Section 8 landlord guide in the description below. And now that you've watched this video, go ahead and watch this next one here where I'm breaking down exactly how to get amazing Section 8 tenants every single time. See you in the next one.